The message arrived on a Tuesday morning while Earth was still drinking its coffee and checking the morning news. A crystalline probe materialized in orbit around the moon, its surface shimmering with patterns that hurt to look at directly. The probe broadcast on every frequency simultaneously, translating itself into every human language in real time. Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. We are the Galactic Council. You have been selected for membership in our civilization. Dr. Emma Walsh nearly dropped her tablet when the notification appeared on her screen. She worked at the International Space Research Center, and her first thought was that someone was playing an elaborate prank. But the readings were impossible to fake. The probe was made of materials that didn't exist on Earth, powered by energy sources that human science could barely detect. The full message took 3 hours to decode. The galaxy was old, the Council explained. Very old, 12,000 worlds. Had been united under their guidance for over 3 millennia. They maintained peace, facilitated trade, and helped younger species find their place in the cosmic community. Earth had been observed for some time, and humanity had finally reached the minimum technological threshold for membership. We are pleased to extend this invitation, the message continued. Your species shows promise in basic tool use and simple space travel. We believe you will find your assigned role quite suitable. The world's governments went into emergency session. Presidents, prime ministers, and premiers huddled in secure communications networks, trying to understand what this meant. The probe had included detailed star charts showing a galaxy teeming with life. Earth was marked as a tiny dot on the outer edge, surrounded by empty space. General Patricia Hayes led the military analysis team. She was a pragmatic woman who had spent her career preparing for conflicts with other humans. The idea of aliens had never been more than science fiction until now. The probe's specifications were terrifying. It was roughly the size of a city bus, but it had traveled faster than light to reach Earth. Its hull was completely indestructible by any weapon humanity possessed. We're not ready for this, she told the Joint Chiefs. If they wanted to destroy us, we couldn't stop them. But the probe's message suggested something different. The Council wasn't interested in conquest. They wanted new members, junior partners who could contribute to their civilization. The package included basic, faster-than-light travel plans, communication protocols, and instructions for building a diplomatic vessel. Tom Bradley had been an astronaut before becoming Earth's first interstellar ambassador. He understood the magnitude of what was happening. Humanity was about to take its first steps into a galaxy-spanning civilization. The opportunities were incredible, but so were the risks. The construction of Earth's first starship took 8 months. The Horizon was built using plans provided by the Council, though human engineers made several modifications. The alien technology was elegant but seemed oddly limited. The faster-than-light drive could only achieve certain speeds. The communication systems had built-in restrictions. The weapons were practically non-existent. It's like they're giving us a bicycle when they have cars, complained Chief Engineer Amy Foster. The technology works, but it's deliberately simplified. Bradley suspected this was intentional. The Council probably didn't want new members to be too capable too quickly. It made sense from their perspective. They were dealing with a species that had been spacefaring for less than a century. Caution was understandable. The journey to the Council's capital world took 3 weeks. The Horizon traveled through hyperspace, a dimension where distances were compressed and faster-than-light travel was possible. The experience was disorienting. Space looked wrong, twisted into shapes that made no geometric sense. The crew had to take medication to prevent severe nausea. When they arrived at the Council station, Bradley felt like an ant approaching a skyscraper. The structure was massive beyond comprehension, a city-sized construct that orbited a star he couldn't identify. Ships from dozens of species moved in carefully controlled patterns around the station. Each vessel was unique, reflecting the biology and technology of its creators. Ambassador Thren met them at the docking bay. He was tall and crystalline, his body reflecting light in prismatic patterns. His voice came through their translators. as a series of harmonic tones that somehow conveyed meaning. He was polite but distant, like a professor greeting students. "Welcome to Nexus Station," he said. "I trust your journey was acceptable for beings of your technological level." The tour that followed was both inspiring and humbling. The station contained entire ecosystems, vast libraries of knowledge, and technologies that seemed like magic, but there was something sterile about it all. The corridors were clean but empty. The vast spaces felt unused. The alien citizens they encountered moved with a kind of mechanical precision that suggested routine rather than purpose. "How many species are members of the Council?" Bradley asked. "Currently, we number 47 civilizations," Thren replied. "Each has found their appropriate niche in our society. The Altarians provide technological guidance. The Keth offer their psychic abilities. The Mordani contribute biological expertise. Everyone has their place." The phrase appropriate niche bothered Bradley, but he said nothing. They were shown to quarters in Section 7G, an area designated for developing civilizations. The accommodations were comfortable but clearly temporary. This was not a place where species were expected to stay long. The formal induction ceremony took place in the council chambers. Representatives from all 47 species attended, though most seemed to be going through the motions. Bradley read the prepared statement accepting Earth's membership, and the humans were officially welcomed into galactic civilization. Their assigned role was simple: raw material extraction and basic manufacturing. Earth would provide metals, crystals, and simple components to more advanced species. In return, they would receive protection, limited access to galactic technology, and the privilege of participating in the cosmic community. "Your species shows potential," Thren told Bradley privately after the ceremony. "In perhaps a few centuries, you might advance to more complex roles. The Council is patient with developing civilizations." Bradley smiled and nodded, but privately he was already planning. The humans had been given a role, but that didn't mean they had to accept it. Earth's history was full of underestimated powers that had surprised their rivals. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had never been good at staying in there. Assigned place. The horizon departed. Nexus Station with detailed instructions for establishing Earth's first interstellar colony. The location was a mining world called Kepler 438b, rich in the rare minerals that galactic civilization required. It would be humanity's first step into the larger universe. As the ship entered hyperspace for the journey home, Bradley looked at the star charts one more time. The galaxy was vast, ancient, and powerful, but it was also complacent. The Council had been in control for 3,000 years, and they had grown comfortable with their dominance. "They have no idea what they've just invited into their civilization," he said to Dr. Walsh. She smiled. "Should we tell them?" "No," Bradley replied. "Let them find out for themselves. Humans work better when we're underestimated." The horizon disappeared into hyperspace, carrying Earth's first diplomatic mission back to a world that would never be the same. The galaxy had extended an invitation, expecting to gain a minor partner. Instead, they had awakened something that would change everything. The mining operation on Kepler 438b should have been routine. The world was rich in rare minerals that the galactic economy required, and the human colonists were supposed to extract them using the basic equipment provided by the Council. Simple: drilling, basic refinement, standard shipping containers. The plan was straightforward enough that even a developing civilization could manage it. Dr. Emma Walsh stood at the observation window of the orbital research station, watching the planet below with growing excitement. The colonists had been on the surface for 3 months, and their reports were remarkable. They weren't just mining the minerals. They were revolutionizing the entire process. "The efficiency reports came in this morning," said Dr. Richard Park, the mission's chief scientist. "They're extracting 340% more material than the Council's projections suggested was possible." Walsh nodded, though she wasn't surprised. The human colonists had looked at the Council's mining techniques and immediately began asking questions. Why drill vertically when horizontal shafts could access larger deposits? Why use single-stage refinement when multi-stage processing could extract more valuable materials from the same ore? Why follow the exact specifications when slight modifications could dramatically improve results? The Council had provided humanity with a technological framework that was 3,000 years old. It worked, but it was based on assumptions that no one had questioned in millennia. The humans had questioned everything. Have you seen the latest reports from the agricultural team? Park asked. Walsh pulled up the data on her tablet. The colonists were supposed to use standard hydroponic systems to grow food, but they had modified the equipment to work with the planet's unique soil composition. The results were extraordinary. They were producing twice the expected food yield while using 60% less energy. They're treating the Council's technology like suggestions instead of absolutes, she observed. On the surface, Colony Director Beth Carter was dealing with her own set of problems. The monthly supply shipment from Earth was 3 days late, and her colonists were running low on several essential components. The Council's logistics system was precise but inflexible. If something went wrong, the entire supply chain ground to a halt. We can't wait for the replacement parts, she told her engineering team. The atmospheric processors need those filter assemblies now. Chief Engineer Mike Torres had been staring at the broken components for 2 days. The Council's technology was sophisticated, but it was also brittle. When something failed, it required exact replacement parts manufactured to precise specifications. There was no room for improvisation or field repairs. What if we don't replace them? He asked. What if we redesign them? The idea was radical. The Council's technology was considered perfect, refined over millennia of use. But Torres had noticed something interesting about the filter assemblies. They were designed to work in any environment, which made them complex and expensive. The specific conditions on Kepler 438b required only a fraction of their capabilities. Working through the night, Torres and his team created new filter assemblies using local materials and simplified designs. The new components were smaller, more efficient, and perfectly suited to their environment. When they installed them, the atmospheric processors began working better than they ever had with the original parts. This is impossible, muttered Dr. Neil Adams, the Council's official observer. He was a member of the Keth species, with large eyes and delicate features that suggested a lifetime spent in controlled environments. His job was to monitor human activities and ensure they followed established protocols. The efficiency readings must be wrong, he continued. These humans are using primitive modifications on advanced technology. The results should be catastrophic. But the results were undeniable. The human colony was outperforming every projection. They were mining more efficiently, growing more food, and maintaining their equipment with innovations that shouldn't have worked. Adams filed increasingly frantic reports with the Council, but his superiors seemed unconcerned. Developing civilizations often show brief periods of creativity before settling into established patterns, replied Counselor Vorth. Monitor them closely, but do not interfere. They will adapt to our methods in time. Back on Earth, Admiral. Bradley was reviewing the colony reports in his office at the newly established Interstellar Command Center. The success on Kepler 438b was encouraging, but it was also causing problems. The Council had noticed that human activities were producing unexpected results. They're asking more questions about our methods, reported Dr. Walsh during their weekly briefing. Ambassador Thren requested detailed explanations of our mining modifications. Bradley wasn't surprised. The humans had been careful to work within the Council's framework, but they had pushed every boundary they could find. The aliens were beginning to realize that their newest members weren't following the script. What did you tell them? He asked. The truth, Walsh replied. We're using their technology exactly as designed, we're just using it better. The real breakthrough came when the human research team began studying the Council's abandoned technologies. Every galactic civilization had periods of rapid innovation followed by long periods of stagnation. The Council's databases contained thousands of research projects that had been discontinued for various reasons. Most were considered too dangerous, too expensive, or too impractical for continued development. The humans saw them as opportunities. Dr. Foster had been working on improving the colony's power systems when she discovered research on dimensional energy extraction. The project had been abandoned by the Altarians 2,000 years ago because it required computational resources that were considered excessive. But human-computer technology, while primitive by galactic standards, was designed around different principles. What the Altarians considered computationally expensive, humans found merely challenging. "We can make this work," she told Bradley during an encrypted communication session. "The theory is sound. They just couldn't build the processing systems needed to control it." "How much more efficient would it be?" Bradley asked. "Conservative estimate? About 1,000% more efficient than their current fusion systems." The silence that followed was significant. If humans could solve problems that had stumped galactic civilization for millennia, they were no longer junior partners. They were potentially the most innovative species in the galaxy. "Start small," Bradley ordered. "Build a prototype. Test it thoroughly and keep it quiet." The dimensional energy prototype was constructed in secret at the colony's research facility. The device was small, roughly the size of a desk, but it generated more power than the colony's entire fusion plant. The technology worked by accessing energy from parallel dimensions, a concept that the Council had explored but never successfully implemented. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Park as he watched the energy readings. "Completely clean, practically. Unlimited, and it uses principles that the Council gave up on centuries ago." The implications were staggering. If humans could unlock the Council's abandoned research, they could leapfrog past species that had been developing for thousands of years. The galaxy's technological hierarchy was based on the assumption that development was linear and predictable. But humans were proving that innovation could skip entire stages of development. Colony Director Carter stood in the main control room, watching as her people continued to push the boundaries of what was possible. The mining operation was now producing materials that were purer than anything the Council had seen. The agricultural systems were growing food that was more nutritious and flavorful than standard galactic provisions. The power systems were generating energy that was cleaner and more efficient than anything in the sector. "We're not just meeting expectations," she told her staff. "We're exceeding them in ways that shouldn't be possible." The monthly council inspection was scheduled for the following week. Dr. Adams would arrive with a team of specialists to review the colony's progress. They would expect to find humans struggling with basic challenges, slowly adapting to galactic technology through trial and error. Instead, they would find a species that had taken their carefully designed systems and improved them beyond recognition. The galaxy had invited Earth to join their civilization as a junior partner. But junior partners weren't supposed to be better at using the technology than the species that had invented it. Carter smiled as she watched her people work. The Council had given humanity a place in their galaxy, but they had made a fundamental mistake. They had assumed that humans would be content to stay in that place. They were about to learn that humans had never been good at accepting limitations. The inspection team would arrive soon, and with them would come the first real test of humanity's place in the galactic order. The results would determine whether Earth remained a minor mining world or became something much more significant. The galaxy had invited Earth to join their civilization. Now they were about to discover what that invitation really meant. The Council inspection team arrived at Kepler 438b, expecting to find a struggling human colony barely managing their assigned tasks. Instead, they found a technological revolution in progress. Dr. Adams had brought specialists from 3 different species to evaluate humanity's progress, and within hours of their arrival, all of them were filing urgent reports. "The mining yields are impossible," reported Chief Analyst Corvin, a member of the Mordani species whose biological expertise made him an expert on resource extraction. "They're extracting materials at 400% efficiency using equipment that should only achieve baseline performance. Their agricultural output violates basic biological principles," added Dr. Nexia, a Keth researcher whose psychic abilities allowed her to analyze living systems at the cellular level. The crops are producing nutrients that don't exist in their genetic structure. But it was the power readings that caused the most concern. The humans were generating energy at levels that should have required a fusion plant 10 times larger than what they had built. The monitoring equipment couldn't explain where the additional power was coming from. Colony. Director Carter greeted the inspection team with professional courtesy, but she could see the confusion in their alien features. They had come expecting to find humans struggling with basic challenges. Instead, they found a colony that was outperforming established galactic standards in every measurable category. "We're happy to demonstrate our methods," she told Dr. Adams. "Though I should warn you, we've made some modifications to the standard procedures." The tour that followed was a revelation. The humans had taken every piece of Council technology and improved it. Their mining equipment used new drilling techniques that accessed ore deposits more efficiently. Their refinement processes extracted valuable materials that the original methods would have discarded. Their storage systems organized materials in ways that reduced waste and improved transport efficiency. "How did you develop these techniques?" asked Analyst Corvin. "We didn't develop them," replied Chief Engineer Torres. "We just asked why the original methods were designed the way they were. When we couldn't find good answers, we tried different approaches." The inspection team was stunned. The Council's technology was based on thousands of years of refinement. Every specification had been tested and optimized through generations of use. The idea that a primitive species could improve upon it was theoretically impossible. "These modifications haven't been tested," protested Dr. Adams. "The safety protocols alone require centuries of evaluation." "We've been testing them for months," Torres replied. "The results speak for themselves. Higher efficiency, lower energy consumption, reduced waste. Every modification we've made has improved performance." The agricultural facilities were even more shocking. The humans had modified their hydroponic systems to work with local soil conditions, creating hybrid growing environments that produced crops with nutritional profiles that exceeded anything in the galactic databases. They had also developed new preservation techniques that kept food fresh for months without refrigeration. "The biological modifications are impossible," Dr. Nexia insisted. "You can't alter plant genetics this rapidly without sophisticated equipment." "We're not altering genetics," explained Dr. Park. "We're optimizing growing conditions. The plants are expressing genetic potential that was always there but never activated under standard conditions." But the real shock came when the inspection team was shown the power generation facility. The humans had built something that looked like standard fusion technology but produced energy readings that defied explanation. The output was too high for the apparent input, and the waste products were negligible. "This violates basic thermodynamic principles," muttered Dr. Adams. "You can't generate more energy than you consume." "We're not generating more energy," replied Dr. Foster. "We're accessing energy more efficiently. The fusion reaction is the same, but we're capturing forms of energy that are usually lost in the process." The inspection team spent 3 days analyzing the human modifications, and their conclusions were disturbing. The humans had taken Council technology and improved it beyond recognition. They had solved problems that had puzzled galactic civilization for millennia, and they had done it in less than a year. "This is a threat to galactic stability," Dr. Adams reported to the Council. "If these humans can improve our technology this easily, what does that say about our own capabilities?" The Council's response was swift and predictable. New restrictions were imposed on human activities. Access to advanced databases was limited. Trade agreements were renegotiated to prevent humans from acquiring technologies that might be further improved. The galaxy's established order was being challenged, and the response was to contain the threat, but the humans had already begun to change the game. The success on Kepler 438b had inspired similar innovations on other human colonies. Earth's growing fleet of ships was incorporating modifications that made them faster, more efficient, and more capable than anything in the galactic databases. Admiral Bradley stood in the command center of the newly constructed orbital shipyard above Mars, watching as humanity's first truly original starship took shape. The vessel incorporated Council technology, but it had been redesigned from the ground up using principles that the galaxy had abandoned centuries ago. The prototype will be ready for testing next month, reported Chief Engineer Foster. It should be capable of speeds that exceed anything in the galactic fleet. Will it be enough? Bradley asked. It's a start, Foster replied. But we're going to need more than better ships. We're going to need to change the entire structure of galactic civilization. The crisis came when the Council discovered that humans were sharing their innovations with other species. The Altarians had been struggling with power generation problems for decades, but human modifications to their crystalline energy systems had solved the issue overnight. The Keth had been limited by the computational requirements of their psychic abilities, but human processing improvements had expanded their capabilities dramatically. They're destabilizing the entire galactic hierarchy, reported Ambassador Thren during an emergency council session. Species that have been relegated to minor roles for millennia are suddenly achieving capabilities that rival the core worlds. The implications were staggering. The galaxy's political structure was based on technological capability. Species were ranked according to their level of development, with the most advanced civilizations holding the most power. If humans could help any species leap ahead in development, the entire system would collapse. We cannot allow this to continue, declared High Counselor Vorth. The humans must be contained before they disrupt the natural order, but containment was proving difficult. Human ships were appearing in sectors where they weren't supposed to be. Human technologies were spreading faster than the Council could track them. Human innovations were being adopted by species that had been stagnant for thousands of years. The final shock came when the Council discovered that humans had been reverse engineering their most advanced technologies. The dimensional folding research that had been abandoned by the Altarians 3,000 years ago had been completed by human scientists in 6 months. The quantum processing theories that had stumped the Keth for centuries had been solved by human computers in 3 weeks. They're not just improving our technology, Dr. Adams reported. They're finishing research that we gave up on ages ago. They're solving problems that we decided were impossible. The galaxy had invited Earth to join their civilization as a junior partner, expecting to gain a species that would mine asteroids and manufacture simple components. Instead, they had awakened something that was reshaping the fundamental nature of galactic society. Colony Director Carter received the Council's ultimatum on a Tuesday morning. All human modifications to Council technology were to be discontinued immediately. All sharing of innovations with other species was to cease. All research into advanced technologies was to be suspended indefinitely. They're trying to put us back in our box, she told her staff. They want us to go back to being the primitive species that follows orders and doesn't ask questions. The response from Earth was swift and decisive. Admiral Bradley's message was broadcast on all Council frequencies simultaneously. We appreciate your concerns about our activities. However, we must respectfully decline your request to limit our research and development. We joined your civilization as partners, not as subjects. The die was cast. Humanity had crossed a line that the Council couldn't ignore. The galaxy's established order was being challenged by a species that had been spacefaring for less than 2 centuries. The response would determine whether Earth remained a member of galactic civilization or became something else entirely. The humans had been invited to join the galaxy. Now they were being asked to leave. The question was whether they would go quietly or fight for their place in the cosmic community. The answer would reshape the galaxy forever. The ultimatum reached Earth on a Thursday morning, delivered by the same crystalline probe that had first invited humanity to join galactic civilization. The message was formal, cold, and utterly final. Cease all unauthorized technological development, or face expulsion from the galactic community. President Maria Santos read the document 3 times before calling an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. The implications were clear. The galaxy's patience with humanity's innovations had reached its limit. They wanted Earth to return to its assigned role as a mining world, extracting materials and manufacturing simple components for more advanced civilizations. "They're scared," said General Hayes, studying the tactical analysis reports. "Our colonies are outperforming their projections by margins that shouldn't be possible. Our ships are incorporating technologies that make their fleets obsolete. We've gone from junior partners to potential competitors in less than 2 years." Admiral Bradley nodded grimly. "The question is whether we comply or fight. If we back down now, we'll be locked into a subordinate role forever. If we resist, we'll be facing the combined might of 12,000 worlds." The debate that followed was intense but brief. Humanity had tasted freedom and innovation. The idea of returning to technological servitude was unthinkable. The vote was unanimous. Earth would refuse the Council's demands. The response was swift and overwhelming. The largest fleet in galactic history assembled at the edge of the Sol system. Over 2,000 ships representing 47 different species, armed with weapons that could sterilize entire planets. The message was clear: submit or be destroyed. High Admiral Corvin of the Altarian Fleet commanded the armada from his flagship, the Eternal Harmony. The vessel was a monument to galactic engineering, 3 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could crack moons. It had never been used in actual combat because no species had been foolish enough to challenge the Council's authority. "This is High Admiral Corvin to the human leadership," he broadcast on all frequencies. "You have 24 hours to surrender unconditionally. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your civilization." The human fleet that rose to meet them was tiny by comparison. 300 ships, most of them built in the 2 years since Earth had joined the galactic community. They looked insignificant next to the massive dreadnoughts of the Council fleet. But appearances were deceiving. Admiral Bradley commanded the defense from the Bridge of the Defiance, humanity's first fully original starship. The vessel incorporated technologies that the Council had abandoned centuries ago, refined and improved by human innovation. It was smaller than the enemy flagships, but exponentially more advanced. "All ships, this is Admiral Bradley," he announced to the human fleet. "Today we prove that innovation beats tradition. Today we show the galaxy that humans don't surrender." The battle began at maximum range, with the Council fleet firing massive energy weapons that had remained unchanged for millennia. The beams were powerful enough to vaporize asteroids, but the human ships simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. They moved with impossible grace, their dimensional drives allowing them to skip between normal space and hyperspace in microsecond intervals. "How are they doing that?" demanded Fleet Commander Thex from the Bridge of the Crystalline Dawn. "Our sensors can't even track them." The answer came in the form of return fire. The human weapons were different from anything in the galactic databases. Instead of raw energy, they fired focused gravitational waves that twisted spacetime itself. The Council ship's shields were designed to stop energy weapons, but they were helpless against attacks that manipulated the fundamental structure of reality. The Crystalline Dawn shuddered as gravitational waves tore through its hull. The damage was surgical, precise, disabling key systems without destroying the ship. The human weapons weren't designed to kill, but to neutralize. "They're not trying to destroy us," reported Tactical Officer Nex. "They're systematically disabling our offensive capabilities." The pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human ships danced between the ponderous Council vessels, their weapons striking with impossible accuracy. The great dreadnoughts that had maintained galactic peace for millennia found themselves helpless against opponents they couldn't even target effectively. The Eternal Harmony tried to ram the Defiance, using its massive size as a weapon, but the human ship simply phased partially into hyperspace, allowing the dreadnought to pass harmlessly through its hull. The counterattack came immediately, gravitational waves that left the flagship's engines completely disabled. "Impossible," whispered High Admiral Corvin. "These are theoretical technologies. They exist only in abandoned research files." "That's the difference between us," replied Admiral Bradley over the open channel. "You abandoned research when it became difficult. We finished it when it became necessary." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the Council fleet was drifting powerless in space, their weapons disabled and their engines offline. Not a single ship had been destroyed, but the most powerful military force in galactic history had been completely neutralized. "This is Admiral Bradley to the Council fleet," came the broadcast. "Your ships and crews are unharmed. You're free to leave whenever you repair your systems. But understand this. Humanity will no longer accept limitations imposed by fear of change. The aftermath was chaotic. The Council had never experienced military defeat, and they had no protocols for dealing with it. The political implications were staggering. If a species that had been spacefaring for less than 2 centuries could defeat the combined galactic fleet, what did that say about the Council's authority? Emergency sessions were called on every major world. Species that had been loyal to the Council for millennia began questioning whether the established order was worth maintaining. The rigid hierarchy that had kept the galaxy stable for 3,000 years was crumbling. "We underestimated them," reported Ambassador Thren to the Emergency Council meeting. "We thought they were a primitive species that would be grateful for our guidance. Instead, they've proven that our entire technological foundation is obsolete." The debate that followed was bitter and desperate. Some council members wanted to negotiate to find a way to coexist with this new human capability. Others demanded a more aggressive response, including the use of weapons that had been banned for millennia. "We could destroy their entire star system," suggested Councillor Vorth. "The Nova bombs have been in storage for 3,000 years, but they still function." "And then what?" replied Councillor Nexia. "We become the monsters that destroy civilizations. For being too innovative? We prove that our peace is maintained through terror rather than cooperation." The humans didn't wait for the Council to reach a decision. Within days of the battle, human ships were visiting every species in the galaxy, offering to share the technologies that had made their victory possible. The dimensional drives that allowed instantaneous travel. The gravitational weapons that could disable any ship without killing its crew. The energy systems that could power entire worlds. "We're not conquerors," Dr. Walsh explained to the representatives of the Keth Collective. "We're offering you the same chance for advancement." "But the Council tried to deny us. The choice is yours." The response was overwhelming. Species that had been trapped in technological stagnation for centuries embraced the human innovations with desperate enthusiasm. The Mordani improved their biological manipulation techniques. The Keth expanded their psychic abilities. Even some Altarians quietly began incorporating human modifications into their crystalline technologies. "They're dismantling our entire civilization," reported Dr. Adams from his observation post. "The hierarchy that has maintained galactic stability for millennia is collapsing. Species are advancing at rates that should be impossible, but the collapse wasn't chaotic. The humans had learned from the Council's mistakes. Instead of imposing a rigid hierarchy, they were facilitating cooperation between species. Instead of hoarding advanced technologies, they were sharing them freely. Instead of maintaining control through fear, they were building consensus through mutual benefit. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves working together on joint research projects. Technologies that had been stagnant for millennia began advancing at unprecedented rates. The galaxy was experiencing the first genuine renaissance in 3,000 years. "We created this situation," Admiral Bradley told the Reformed Council during the peace negotiations. "We joined your civilization expecting to be partners, not subjects. When you tried to limit our potential, we had to choose between submission and independence. We chose independence." The new galactic order was still taking shape, but the principles were clear. No species would be limited by arbitrary restrictions. Research would be shared freely. Innovation would be encouraged rather than controlled. The galaxy would advance, together or not at all. The Council had invited Earth to join their civilization as a junior partner. Instead, they had awakened a species that would reshape the entire galactic community. The old order was dead, replaced by something that was more dynamic, more inclusive, and more capable of facing the challenges of an infinite universe. The galaxy had invited Earth. Now Earth was leading them into a future that none of them could have imagined. The peace negotiations took place aboard a neutral station that humanity had constructed in the 3 months following the battle. The structure itself was a statement of intent, larger than any existing galactic habitat, powered by technologies that the Council had thought impossible, and built with a speed that defied every known principle of engineering. Ambassador Thren sat across from Admiral Bradley in the station's central conference room, his crystalline features reflecting the soft light from the windows that showed the vast construction projects taking place outside. The remnants of the Council fleet were being repaired by human engineering ships, their crews working alongside the same humans who had defeated them. "Your terms are unprecedented," Thren said, his voice carrying harmonics of confusion and reluctant respect. "You're not demanding territory or tribute. You're not seeking to replace the Council with human authority. Instead, you're proposing to dismantle the entire structure of galactic civilization." Bradley leaned back in his chair, studying the datapad that contained humanity's proposal for a new galactic order. The document was revolutionary in its simplicity: equal representation for all species, free sharing of technology, unrestricted research and development, and the complete elimination of the rigid caste system that had dominated the galaxy for 3 millennia. "We're not dismantling civilization," Bradley replied. "We're fixing it. Your system worked when the galaxy was young and species needed guidance to find their place. But it's become a prison that prevents growth and innovation. We're offering everyone the chance to reach their full potential." The negotiations had been ongoing for weeks, with representatives from all 47 species participating in the discussions. The humans had been patient but firm. They would not accept a return to the old system, but they were willing to work with anyone who embraced change. Dr. Walsh entered the conference room, carrying the latest reports from the various working groups. The transformation of galactic society was happening faster than anyone had anticipated. Species that had been technological rivals for centuries were collaborating on joint research projects. Ancient enemies were sharing resources and knowledge. The rigid boundaries that had defined galactic politics were dissolving. The Keth Collective has successfully integrated human neural interface technology with their psychic abilities, she reported. They're now capable of manipulating matter. At the quantum level, the Mordani have combined our dimensional technology with their biological expertise to create living ships that can grow rather than being built. Even the Altarians are requesting technical assistance with upgrading their crystalline matrices. Thren's expression shifted through several prismatic patterns that indicated deep thought. The Altarians had been the dominant species in the galaxy for over 2,000 years. Their crystalline cities were marvels of engineering that had seemed impossible to improve. The fact that they were now asking for human help represented a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. "Your people learn quickly," he admitted, "perhaps too quickly. Some council members fear that this rapid advancement will lead to instability." "Instability?" Bradley asked. "You mean competition? You're afraid that species you've kept subordinate for millennia might become your equals." The truth was uncomfortable but undeniable. The galaxy's peaceful stability had been maintained through technological apartheid. Advanced species controlled the most sophisticated technologies, while newer civilizations were relegated to simple tasks. The system prevented conflict by preventing equality. "Change is always disruptive," Thren conceded. "But perhaps disruption is necessary. Our birth rates have been declining for centuries. Our exploration has ceased. Our research has stagnated. We've become so focused on maintaining order that we've forgotten how to grow." The breakthrough came when the first joint exploration mission returned from the galactic core. The expedition consisted of ships from 12 different species, all incorporating human technological improvements. They had penetrated further into the galaxy's center than any previous mission, discovering phenomena that challenged everything the Council thought they knew about the universe. "The core regions aren't empty," reported Captain Lisa Park, who had commanded the human contingent of the expedition. There are structures there. Massive constructs that dwarf anything we've ever built. They're ancient, possibly predating our entire civilization. The discovery changed everything. The galaxy that the Council had thought it understood was far more complex and mysterious than anyone had imagined. The structures appeared to be artificial, but they were built using principles that none of the galactic species could comprehend. They were clearly the product of a civilization far more advanced than anything in the current galaxy. "We need to investigate further," declared Dr. Nexia of the Keth. "These structures could contain technologies that make our current capabilities look primitive." "Agreed," said bioengineer Kral of the Mordani. "But we'll need to work together. No single species has the expertise to understand what we've found." The prospect of ancient alien technology provided the final motivation needed to complete the galactic transformation. Species that had been reluctant to abandon the old system suddenly realized that clinging to traditional hierarchies would prevent them from participating in the greatest discovery in galactic history. The new Galactic Compact was signed on a Tuesday morning in the same conference room where the negotiations had begun. Representatives from all 47 species added their approval to the document that would reshape their civilization. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. "Today we choose growth over stagnation," Admiral Bradley said as he signed humanity's approval. "We choose cooperation over competition. We choose to face the unknown together rather than hiding behind the limitations of the past." The transformation that followed was remarkable. The rigid council structure was replaced by a dynamic assembly, where every species had an equal voice. The technological restrictions that had prevented innovation were eliminated. Research became a collaborative effort involving the combined expertise of the entire galaxy. Colony Director Carter stood in the observation lounge of New Harmony Station, watching as the first truly integrated galactic fleet prepared for departure. The ships were marvels of cooperative engineering, combining the best technologies from dozens of species. Human dimensional drives worked alongside Altarian crystalline matrices. Keth psychic interfaces integrated with Mordani biological systems. The result was a fleet capable of exploring regions of space that had been unreachable for millennia. "It's beautiful," said Dr. Foster, joining her at the observation window. "A year ago, most of these species wouldn't even communicate with each other. Now they're building the future together." The fleet's destination was the galactic core, where the ancient structures waited to reveal their secrets. But the journey itself was as important as the destination. For the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy was moving forward together. "The Council invited us to join their civilization," Carter reflected. "They thought they were getting junior partners who would follow orders and stay in their assigned place. Instead, they got catalysts who would transform everything they thought they knew about the universe." The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Humanity had been selected for membership because they appeared to be a safely primitive species that wouldn't disrupt the galactic order. Instead, they had proven that innovation and determination could overcome any limitation. The exploration fleet activated their combined drives and disappeared into hyperspace, carrying representatives from every species in the galaxy toward discoveries that would reshape their understanding of existence itself. Behind them, the transformed galactic civilization continued its work of building a future where every species could reach its full potential. The galaxy had invited Earth to join them as a junior member. Now Earth was leading them into an age of exploration and discovery that would dwarf everything that had come before. The old order of rigid hierarchies and technological restrictions was dead, replaced by a dynamic civilization that embraced change rather than fearing it. Admiral Bradley remained on New Harmony Station, coordinating the massive transformation. That was still ongoing. Species were sharing technologies that had been closely guarded secrets for millennia. Research projects were advancing at unprecedented rates. The galaxy was experiencing a renaissance that promised to unlock capabilities beyond anything previously imagined. "We've proven that underestimating humanity is a mistake," he told Dr. Walsh as they reviewed the latest progress reports. "But more importantly, we've proven that any species can exceed their limitations if they're given the freedom to try." The transformation was complete. The galaxy that had invited Earth to join them had been fundamentally changed by that invitation. They had expected to gain a minor partner. Instead, they had discovered what was possible when innovation was valued over tradition, when cooperation replaced competition, and when the unknown was embraced rather than feared. The galaxy had invited Earth. Now Earth was showing them what they could become.